Hey guys, I'm in this weird random location because this is my living room. Because it is 81 degrees in my house right now, it feels about 300. It's 106 outside, and my room was way too hot to even try to film in. This is a very long overdue video, and I'm sorry it's taking me this long. I just got back from Hawaii, but I am going to finally make this video, so let's just stop rambling and get right into it. Most of my content is pretty comedy driven, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't make a ton of serious videos, but this one is going to be a lot more on a serious topic. I wasn't planning on making a video about mental health until I was completely out of my journey on mental health, like in a good spot, you know what I mean? Passed, learned, all this stuff. Unfortunately, with the way that people view things nowadays, it's not gonna be able to wait that long because some things happened and I was like, can't wait to make a video about that. I just want to preface this with the fact that I am not a professional. I did not go to school for this. I'm not a doctor. So please don't hold me to that. All of my opinions are formed off of three main things: the AP psychology class that I took in high school, my own research because I'm really interested in these topics, and my own experiences. Please take everything I say with a grain of salt, research for yourself, do all that fun stuff, and let's get right into the video. I want to cover three main topics in this video. Three main topics in this video. Number one being just mental health awareness in general. Number two being the stigma around mental health. And number three, answering your guys' questions I had you ask me on Twitter. To focus on number one, mental health awareness. I don't want to get too into the stigma, but I might kind of group these two into one. If you don't know what mental health is, it's basically what it is, it's mental health. However, we're not really taught in school very often. At least where I went to school, it was not mandatory to take a mental health class whatsoever. We hardly learned, I don't even know if we learned about it in our health class, and if we did, it was a very not informative section. I've heard of some schools as doing a mental health as part of their health unit, but my school didn't offer that. All we really had was the class psychology and the AP psychology class, which was the one that I took. At the time, I wasn't really interested in mental health. I think I just took it because it was an easy AP class. However, this is also going to include my backstory on this. My camera is dying, so I'm going to try and film as much of this as I can without it dying while I charge my other battery. Anyways, at the time I was taking AP psychology, I was going through some really extreme mental health issues, but I didn't really know, / I was in denial, / I didn't want to address the fact that I was going through them, just basically for the stigma around it. So a lot of things I related to while learning in the class, but I was way too terrified to even say anything like that, because at the time I didn't want to admit that I was depressed or, you know what I mean? Those things, I just didn't want to. So to keep this part short and sweet, mental health awareness, I think, needs to be more incorporated into our school system and just in the general public, because nothing's gonna happen overnight, you know what I mean? But I want to encourage you guys that being 100% mentally healthy is great, but it's okay if you're not. Mental illnesses are much more common than you'd think. It doesn't make you crazy, it doesn't mean that nobody's gonna love you ever. And these are just things that I wish I would have heard and I needed to hear when I was younger and going through, you know, the start of the really deep and bad parts of my journey. I'd gone through a lot of stuff before that, but that I'll explain. Just wanted to throw that in there that you guys need to know that it's okay. I'll delve into this when I answer your questions because that is really what this is mainly surrounded around. Sorry I'm jumping around so much, I just don't know how to formulate this video. I didn't write notes or anything like that. Probably should have, but I didn't, so hey. So secondly, I want to touch on the stigma around mental health. If you don't know what a stigma means, the direct definition off dictionary.com is a mark of disgrace or infamy, a stain or reproach as on one's reputation. To give you a better idea, that's basically a stigma around mental health is how people view it, sort of like a stereotype, but a negative way. Because not all stereotypes are negative necessarily, you know what I mean. A lot of common thoughts revolving around the stigma of mental health is everyone with a mental illness is crazy, it doesn't exist, etc. fill in the blank. I'm just gonna put this under the whole umbrella of stigma. I don't even forget the three things I'm covering. I don't even know where I'm talking about this. There's a lot of misconstrued thoughts and opinions concerning the wording that we use surrounding the language that we use every day. So I'm gonna get into a couple things and I'm just gonna look at things based on definition. We're not gonna get into opinions and feelings quite as much. I'm gonna try and stray away from that because it's not really my place to talk about that stuff and I don't want to offend anyone in case they don't agree. However, I am going to kind of talk about some words, okay? This all has to do with mental health, so please just stick around. Sorry, it's hopping all around. Yeah. A really common phrase that people get very upset about, or I guess a couple common phrases would be, I feel depressed, or I'm having anxiety, or I feel anxious. And people get really upset about these because people who struggle with depression or struggle with anxiety may say that it's not fair to make light of their mental illness, etc., etc. We're talking about depression and anxiety, using them as everyday words, if that's okay, if it's not okay. A lot of people say it's not okay, a lot of people still use it, but I want to go into the actual definitions of the word just to give you guys some more knowledge and interest on this topic. The definition of depression, which I'll put right here on the screen, is feelings of severe despondency and dejection. The second definition is a long and severe recession in an economy or market, obviously. We'll ignore the economy part, but the main definition. Now let's look at the definition for anxiety. A feeling of worry, nervousness, or unease, typically about an imminent, I love English, event or something with an uncertain outcome. And then if you look at the actual definition, which I'll put on the screen, it has a psychiatry definition, a nervous disorder characterized by a state of excessive uneasiness and apprehension, typically with compulsive behavior or panic attack. So, to wrap that up, both of these words that are often used in common language, both have the word feeling in it. So what I'm trying to get at is when someone says, I feel really depressed today, or I'm having anxiety, that's technically correct. You can feel those feelings. Now, if someone says, I have depression, or I have clinical anxiety, and they're not diagnosed with such, that's a little bit more on this side that's probably incorrect. Now, some words that have to do with mental health that are used in common language that are not correct are as follows. Wow, that room is messy. My OCD is acting up. Oh, I'm so ADHD today. I just can't stop moving. That manicure I got was so bad. I have PTSD. These are just some common words and phrases that are used all the time, and honestly, I'm not gonna get into this whole spiel on how that's so incorrect and you're so wrong, and these phrases aren't used to hurt people. They're just used out of ignorance, and if we're gonna use the word ignorant correctly, it just means that you lack knowledge, so please don't go around calling everybody ignorant unless they actually do lack knowledge. The difference between saying these mental illnesses as common language versus depression is these are disorders. So obsessive compulsive disorder is not a feeling or an adjective to a feeling. Post-traumatic stress disorder is not a feeling. I'll read the definition of OCD if we're gonna get really into definitions here. Obsessive compulsive disorder is an anxiety disorder in which people have unwanted and repeated thoughts, feelings, ideas, sensations, obsessions, or behaviors that make them feel driven to do something, compulsion. Often the person carries out the behaviors to get rid of the obsessive thoughts, but this only provides temporary relief. Not performing the obsessive rituals can cause great anxiety. A person's level of OCD can be anywhere from mild to severe, but if severe and left untreated, it can destroy a person's capacity to function at work, at school, or even to lead a comfortable existence in the home. The reason why I'm going more into the OCD side versus the PTSD and ADHD and all that stuff is because I have OCD, and I cannot tell you how many times I've heard of people using the word, I even used to use these words. We're all guilty of it. I'm not saying anybody's horrible person for using these phrases or using these illnesses as common language. I'm just as guilty as the rest is what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to show you guys a different perspective on the issue itself. And I'm not saying you're in the wrong if you feel offended by someone using the word depressed or using anxiety. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to show you a different side of the spectrum. Anyways, back to OCD. I'm gonna go a little bit into my own personal feelings and experiences here and delve into that because I think that that's going to give more credibility to my entire statement. I personally am diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder and some sort of depression, anxiety. I don't really know the exact diagnosis that I have, but I go to a therapist and I have a psychiatrist and I'm on medication for the OCD and depression and anxiety because OCD, if you didn't know, is an anxiety disorder, as I just read the definition of it and all of that stuff. So that also comes into play with my anxiety, but I also have anxiety separated from that. And then I also struggle with depression. So the medication helped all three of those, and I have a separate prescription for anxiety attacks. I didn't really start noticing my anxiety until after I graduated high school, but now when I look back on my childhood and upbringing, I understand what those feelings were at the time were not normal. They were, in fact, clinical anxiety. Like I mentioned before, I didn't want to make this video until I was completely better or, on the right track, which I am on the right track, but I mean in the sense like I was coming out of all of this. There's just been so much stigma around so many things as of recently. I don't feel like I should wait anymore to make a video about it. I'm just jumping all over the place. Gonna go back to the thing about me. I started getting really depressed my high school junior year, I want to say, and it was really bad. I should have gotten help then, but I was so afraid because I had all these thoughts in my head like nobody's ever gonna love you if you go to therapy, or if you have to be on medication, people are gonna think you're crazy, you're never gonna fall in love. All these horrible thoughts that were in my head, all just because of ignorance. I didn't know I had all these things. I've been struggling with the OCD all my life, since before I can even remember. It's been really tough, but I didn't understand what it was until about maybe a year ago, maybe even less. A lot of people, if I mention it, are like, you don't have OCD, look at your room, or you don't have OCD, I can tell you're so messy, and that's just another stereotype towards a lot of mental illnesses. People think OCD only when you like things really clean, and that's not how it is. I get really intrusive thoughts with my OCD. I have compulsions sometimes. I had them a lot more when I was younger. I actually wrote a list, so I'll read off some of the random things. Take this with a grain of salt. If you do some of these random compulsions, it doesn't mean you have OCD. OCD manifests itself where you get anxiety and a feeling of guilt and discomfort if you don't carry out compulsion. A lot of my compulsions are confessions that has to do with intrusive thoughts. It's really difficult to explain, but if you want to, you can look it up. OCD is like a massive mental illness and disorders. It's really interesting because it manifests itself in so many different ways. Pretty sure my best friend has it and hers is completely different than mine, but it's still the same disorder. This is more of an obsession. When I was younger, I used to have this little tiny Pikachu, and I would sleep with it every single night and lose it every single night and freak out. That's more of one of those things where I don't really know if that had to do with my OCD, but it could also just be a funny kid thing. My blanket always had to be perfectly spread out with the corners of the top facing on top of me, and then like that. Actually, in the cart one day when I was like 1 or something, my parents told me that I was screaming because my blanket was not put out perfectly on the cart. When I was younger, if I would say brush this pillow right here with my right hand, I would have to go back and touch it with my left hand. That's a really common compulsion with people with OCD. I actually remember watching a television show about obsessive compulsive disorder and about extreme cases and how people would do that, and I was like, that's so weird because I do that. Pause, I'm filming this on my mom's dank iPhone 5S for her work, so sorry for the change of footage. I am editing this right now and I'm so confused because a whole chunk of the video is taken out. Like, I don't know if it was the camera or if it was me somehow, but it's not on the SD card. When it goes to from what you just watched until the next clip, it's like 10 minutes is gone. So it really wouldn't make sense if I uploaded it how it is and if I edit it how it is, because it just goes straight into talking about this and doesn't transition whatsoever into answering your questions, and a bunch of your guys' questions are left out. So I'm sorry, I'm still gonna upload this because I think I made some good points and I need a video. Not like I would upload something just because I need a video. I've done that before, obviously. Whatever, I'm just rambling, but like this is a good starting point, so I'm gonna re-answer your questions. I'll have to refilm the whole thing and answer them again, but I'm really sorry. That video should be up next week, most likely. Yeah, I just wanted to apologize. Thanks for your support though, and let me know if you have any questions down below, and I will see you all in the next video. I'm gonna try and get out 3 videos this week, including Sunday, if Sunday is included in this week. Okay, I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.